Well,
starting gun.
that's the starting gun. Evening all. Could any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device mute it to avoid feedback? Could remote participants keep their camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak, as this can affect the quality of the meeting. This meeting is being live webcast and the recording stays on the council's website. I'd like to welcome everyone to this evening's hybrid Eastern Area Committee meeting, including anyone attending remotely. The following Swale Borough Council officers are in attendance: Head of Finance and Procurement, Claire Stanbury, Service Improvement and Project Manager, Andre Bowen, who is online. Excellent. And Policy and Engagement Officer, Janet Dart. Good evening. We haven't got either of our county representatives here this evening. Are there any representatives of parish or town councils in attendance who would like to introduce themselves? Wonderful. And I've just realised no nameplate for me, so I'm the chair this evening, Councillor Ben Martin from Watling Ward.
I do apologise for forgetting the nameplate.
If you don't know who I am by now, there's problems. Right. That's fine. Thank you, that works. If you would like to speak on any item, please raise your hand and I will invite you in turn to speak. Likewise, could anyone attending remotely please mute their microphone until they speak and indicate on the IM if you wish to speak. Agenda item 1 is the emergency evacuation procedures. Please be aware of the evacuation procedures to follow in the event of an emergency. There is no scheduled test of the fire alarm during this meeting. If the alarm does sound, please leave the building quickly without collecting any of your possessions, using the doors signed as fire escapes. That one straight out and on, as that's the only one unless the trap door's open, which it isn't. Excellent.
Use the lift.
Please don't use the lift and await instructions before re-entering the building. Should anyone require assistance in evacuating the building, please make a member of the team aware and we can make suitable arrangements. Does anyone know?
I'll hobble there. I'll make it down.
Excellent. Excellent. Item 2 is apologies for absence. Are there any apologies?
I've received apologies from councillors Gould, Golding, Perkin and Claire Martin. Are there any other apologies that have been sent that I'm not aware of? Councillor Bowen, Councillor Lehman, Councillor Speed and Councillor Thompson. No? Okay, thank you.
Lovely. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay. Agenda item 4 is the minutes. Do members agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of February 2025, minute numbers 675 to 686 as a correct record?
Agree.
Yeah, lovely. I'll sign those off now before I forget and get in trouble again. Don't want to end up doing what I did last year and having to sign loads and it's at the end of the year. Agenda item 5 is the customer access strategy. The service improvement and project manager, Andre Bowen, who is joining us online, is going to give a presentation on the customer access strategy. Afterwards, please ask if you have any questions. Okay.
So, can my screen be seen clearly, my presentation?
Yes, it can. Thank you. And can everybody hear, Andre?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear. Let me try. I've probably turned it down too low. Let me just try turning the volume up a little bit, Andre, and then we'll be with you.
Okay.
Okay, could you just say something so we can test the volume?
Hello,
Andre?
everyone.
Yes, that's lovely. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So as mentioned, my name is Andre Bowen and I'm the Service Improvement and Project Manager here at Swale Borough Council. Currently, I'm working on several projects, one of which is the Customer Access Strategy Review. Swale Borough Council's current customer access strategy was written in 2013, ensuring easy, clear and convenient access to Swale services for all. While the overarching aim still exists, the way this is achieved needs to be revisited. In the last decade alone, there's been a shift in local demographics, political control, technological developments, and social norms post-COVID-19, Brexit, and soon to be devolution. So, this presentation will look at the various channels available to customers currently, the trend in customer contact over the last few years, the stages of reviewing the customer access strategy, a little about the customer experience survey. We'll look at how many responses were received and the most important questions from this survey. At the end, again, I'm happy to make note of any other suggestions or respond to any questions that the best as I can. All right, so currently there are a variety of ways customers can contact us. That is either using face-to-face, telephone, email, self-service, or posts. Each have their strengths and weaknesses. However, the findings from this review will enable us to shape this as needed by our customers. The data obtained over the last few years shows a pattern at Swale Borough Council where we serve the most people through the self-service option, followed by telephone, email, and then face-to-face. It is worth noting, however, that not all self-service transactions are reflected here. So, such as residents using our bin tool. However, these options have reduced the number of contacts we've received in other channels. Our new customer access strategy review aims to ensure that our customers have the best possible experience, benefiting from accessible and high quality services. To shape the outcomes of this strategy, we sought the views of our residents. We also listened to our business partners, the voluntary sector, staff, and our members. The Swale Customer Experience Survey was published online between 5th of May this year to the 16th of June, just yesterday. It was also advertised on our social media accounts and newsletters. There were posters at Swale House, the Alexander Centre, Swallows Leisure Centre, and the Sheppey Leisure Complex. Residents who wanted paper copies or needed assistance with the form were supported by Swale's community and voluntary services as advertised. We received feedback from 126 residents, 101 of which submitted online. A small portion also took part in the free 7-day gym, swim, and workout classes membership giveaway. All right, so now for our burning questions. So these are some of the questions included in our survey, and also we would like to present here where we could get any additional feedback. Firstly, which methods are used the most to contact us for information or assistance within the eastern area? So I'm open to hear any comments from attendees in terms of the questions we have here, our burning questions.
I think it's self-service the most frequently used.
Anyone?
I've got a resident who filled in online and to be answered within 15 days. I chased it and chased it. And nobody until yesterday, I think it was Maria, Tim's secretary, here, came back to him, which the resident was not at all happy about.
All right.
Chris Oswald, James, I'm just looking at the statistics there, of less than 150 responses out of the whole scale.
Yeah.
Is the whole exercise worth it in that?
Well, I mean, if we
You've got to
did,
try, yes.
yeah.
Josh?
I think realistically, from my experience using this side of services that people I speak to most were ones via telephone or self-service, housing, things like that. Because they can't actually afford to get to our house, that's the most option they've got. So I'd say that's probably the option people be looking at where I've spoken to them.
Right, thank
Yours,
you.
Andre?
Thanks. We also would like to know how satisfied are you with the current methods? And this will let us know if our current processes are right or not.
Josh?
I think it depends on what level you're talking about. So I think if you talk about the self-service website, then
Yeah.
people are pretty satisfied. If you talk about people who use telephone or email, they're not happy with it in many ways. People I've spoken to have tried to contact via telephone, find it confusing and can't actually get hold of people they want to speak to a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I think that's on the paper report, and as already been mentioned by Councillor Jackson, the response time on email is the best as well. So I think self-service good, other bits not so much.
Okay.
Anybody else? Just from the chair, certainly I've had residents that have been in touch that would prefer some additional options. So the ability to contact through social media or through WhatsApp has come up a few times. And certainly when looking at the telephony system for some issues, it's very difficult for a resident to describe them over the phone. The ability to take a web link for a video chat may assist with that, but that's fairly limited, given the sorts of issues that we discussed.
Okay, we'll take on board. And the other thing we wanted to know was the time most convenient to contact us. Now, there aren't restrictions with self-service as such, but things like face-to-face, the opening hours are limited currently, but we want to have a measure of when is most convenient for our residents.
Let's take yourself.
Just a note, with current working practices around people going mostly into London, but those who are commuting and working from home in a mixture are more often at home in Faversham on Monday and Friday. So the Tuesday opening of the council office is not hugely helpful for that group of people, which obviously also reflects the working habits of Swales officers, which is entirely appropriate. But there might be a balance to be struck there where we could have a different opening day even occasionally that might, for example, frequently neither I nor my partner are at home on a Tuesday, so it's often quite difficult to buy business parking permits because you have to do that physically.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think when we talk about face-to-face, as Councillor Gibson sort of said, that having that Faversham is an issue, but I think as well looking at actual working trends and stuff like that, that having the opening hours at Swale House and also Faversham sort of based very much in the middle of the day is not the most convenient for a lot of people. If people are travelling to and from and giving up an hour until work is not something that most people can do. So I think we're looking at potentially earlier or later for face-to-face and also by telephone.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And also, so in terms of additional solutions, this will give us an idea of where our customers will see the biggest benefit. So whether that be, so go ahead, sorry.
Face to face, I mean, if anything, face to face and hours that would suit people. But obviously, officers have got a working life and home life, so it's really striking a happy medium. But most people who haven't got the internet would rather do face to face.
Councillor Jones?
Following my cryptic of the less than 150 responses, the answer to that would come from all of those that haven't responded. How do you fill that? I've no idea. People will chatter on Facebook, but they won't come to the required route.
Be completely honest, I think 100 is one of our actual better response rates across the borough. Very, very rare do we get into double figures for borough-wide consultations. I think I'm right in saying for the last taxi licensing policy, with the exception of the 3 firms that responded, we had 2 members of the public. Everything else was either
Carriage licensing
Yeah.
review.
consultation, only 2 members of the public.
Yeah.
Everything else was either a taxi firm or a taxi driver. And even then, it wasn't double figures. And it's fairly common.
That's why I asked the question, didn't I?
Yeah.
At a meeting, why was it such a poor response?
And we also want to know, do we have constituents or members of the public that do not have access to the internet or smart devices? Can we think of any in the Eastern area?
Far away.
So I think we live in a world where we'd like to think most people do have access to internet and smart devices. I think the stark reality of that is that we do live in a world of data poverty. I know that the Food Bank and also Umbrella Manufacturing Community Centre are trying to do projects around data hubs and giving out free SIM cards and stuff like that to boost it. But the problem is there's only so much they can do. You can give a SIM card out, but you can't actually give a device out to go with that. I think realistically, we need to look at the idea of internet and smart devices is fine, but for a lot of people who probably need the services the most, they need that face-to-face communication and they need local face-to-face communication as well, because as I sort of mentioned, getting to City One is getting more and more expensive. If you're going on train, I think it's about £6.20 or £6.80 for a return now. If you're going on the bus, it's £3. If that's a choice between somebody going something for their lunch for that day or going hungry just to go and see a service that may not be open, then I know what they're going to shoot us. It's that I just don't think we should be putting people in that choice. There, it needs to be, either or, it should be both.
Yourself?
Yeah, as far as that's concerned, my day job is working with DWP. Obviously we don't for the self-service, everybody online. We estimate that somewhere around 5% of the population cannot access smart services. And that's why we have telephonies open from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, feeding into the system. And I think we would need to be looking at something similar to match the services the government are giving to ensure you can capture everyone. And you would need people who are working on the systems and able to call back after, say, up to 6:30 in the evening.
Councillor Jackson, did you have something as well? No? So certainly I think that's some food for thought in the area. There are a number of residents who do not have that ability. We do have to balance that with the costings. Very rare. Perhaps one of those solutions are those self-service kiosk style things on the days when the Alexander Centre is not open with the window. I know there's a telephone in there when they are open to contact housing options, but if that's available on days when it's not open, that may help.
It's my understanding that the offer of a Swell Borough Council facility in the Alexandra on a Tuesday was a trial in COVID times. And there is an ongoing tick sheet for footfall, and I'm in there pretty well every week to help keep the football going. I've got things which I can speak. I've got things which I couldn't do online, but I might still go to see Alex or Chloe. But if it's not being used that much, it's going to be closed down, obviously. And so to expand it into other days of the week, I can't see that being realistic.
But that's why my suggestion was the self-service kiosk style. So you
That's
have
not a lot doing.
That's the thing, you've got to put it on. That's the problem we have at the moment. Yeah, it's getting the balance like it says. What do we have up next?
And one more question was skills issued. So from I understand from the survey responses that have come back so far, it does appear that skills issues seem to be more of a concern compared to access to internet or smart devices. Would you say that is the same within the eastern area?
Getting some nodding heads.
Yeah, I think there's if you regularly use the forms, as clearly councillors and a number of us in this room do, are reporting lots of things lots of the time, and you save the data, the form filling aspect on your phone does a lot of it automatically, then it is very quick and convenient. But if you're not a very regular user and you don't have those things saved in the cache on your computer, then some of them are quite labour intensive, particularly for things that are relatively minor, would be my feedback. So which feedback I gave in a different context is actually if I go for a walk on Sheffield or in Park in Sittingbourne and I see an overflowing bin, I'm very happy to report it on the forms. It takes me 2 minutes. I actually don't care very much when you do it. You don't need to do my feedback. I don't need feedback. And obviously I want feedback in my ward. I'm just being helpful. And that's true of lots of our residents. They don't need to know when the bin's empty. If they're walking their dog past it every day, they'll see when you've emptied it 2 days' time. They don't need an email about it. So some simplification might help on some of those. Clearly, some issues require great deals of personal data, and that's entirely appropriate. But some things we don't.
The ability to report anonymously would be helpful at times. Mr. Russell James.
The whole process of trying to enter information into what for the first, second, third time is a new approach. Very similar on the police 101. You put in an answer to the question and you get another question. Oh, I've already answered that. You've done too much in the first answer. It's familiarisation of what the process is. When people are frightened to even start, they're not going to learn.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we're luckier than a lot of areas in that we do have West Faversham, we do have Umbrella, we do have the library who offer support for people filling in the forms. The libraries, should I say. Because Bolton's open certain days of the week and Tenham as well. But there are those that their ability to utilise smart tech is limited pretty much to social media.
I think older people especially find it really hard. I mean, I was brought up not with a computer, don't even a smartphone. So there's an awful lot I think. And then you've got the other end of the scale, the people who are really struggling financially, the younger families, they can't afford it.
Yeah.
The internet's a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All of this will be used in consideration going forward in terms of the strategy, the new strategy, which will go to members. So now, if there are any other points that you think should be considered, if it hasn't already come up, or any questions that I might be able to answer, feel free to fire away through the chair, that is.
Anyone?
So when we're looking at face-to-face services and we're looking at the options there, obviously we talk about the one at the Alexandra Centre. Have we considered taking that on tour? Like this has been mentioned by Councillor Martin, we have other venues in Faversham that, the Alexander Centre is very much town centre specific and centric. We've got West Faversham Community Centre, which serves a large number of population. We've got other sites as well. I'm also aware that places like Love Lane have no area that actually has no there, apart from St Catherine's School Hall or something like that, but that's still a bit of a mission away. Is there any way we potentially make it less centric to town centre and actually start potentially moving it out? And also, I mean, I was talking about Faversham, that local parishes for this. Because if you're in a parish, then you've got to come into Faversham for 1 day a week. Is there any way we can actually look at moving it around rather than just keeping it so centric?
That hasn't been something that I've considered personally. So if I understand correctly, you're saying this wouldn't require additional staffing as such. It'd just be a new location within the Eastern area, not just Faversham. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically just take it on tour, so it's not always in the Alexander Centre each week.
Okay, all right. I will add this to the ideas as well to consider.
Because West Faversham, I'm sure would give you a room, hopefully, and that would, it's got most deprived ward, not far, and the most deprived road, which is in my ward, so it would encompass those people.
Yeah.
Mr. Edmund.
An alternative approach is to go where the people are, which tends to be, forgetting the place, tends to be the supermarkets. So thinking of the NHS and their mobile walk-in specialist facilities, something like that outside of Tesco's, outside the culprit, the station on a pre-booked and announced timing could be. I mean, we have the police surgeries now, they rotate different venues.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all thinking.
And just to add to that, I suppose, could always take it on tour with a Swale or one Swale roadshow. Anything further? Lovely, I think we're there or thereabouts.
All right, so thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to take a decision from the chair on agenda item 6, as Councillor Thompson is not here to provide the briefing on the proposed extension of the AONB, that we defer that to the next meeting if everyone's content.
Good idea.
Excellent. Difficult to do it when there's no briefing. Agenda item 7 is a review of the area committees. Earlier this year, Council agreed that a review of area committees should take place. I would like to hear your thoughts on how effective you find these meetings, but to start off, Janet Dart, Policy and Engagement Officer, will give a short presentation about the background and purpose of the area committees. Right way, Jen.
Thank you. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Janet Dart and I'm the Policy and Engagement Officer, and part of my role is to coordinate these area committee meetings. As the Chair will explain in more detail later on, a review of the committees is being carried out and we'd like your feedback this evening. So to start with, I'm going to give a bit of feedback, a bit of background on area committees and how they operate at the moment, as this may help with the discussions later on about how they should function going forward. Right, so following the 2019 local elections, one of the objectives of the administration was to diffuse power among members to improve public engagement and decision making. To achieve this, the administration put in place arrangements to set up area committees in Swale. Members agreed how they should be set up, and the first round of meetings took place in September 2020. There's 4 area committees which cover the whole of the borough, and they're divided into Eastern, Sheppey, Sittingbourne, and Western. Thank you. Apologies. With me, I'm trying to multitask and I'm not very good at it. There we go. Right, each year there are 4 rounds of meetings which take place in February, June, September and December. There is some crossover to other months, a little bit, if we can't get them all in the 1 month. So in total, there's 16 meetings a year. Membership includes all ward members in the area, and the committee's boundaries are aligned with those wards that it covers. Substitute members are not allowed, and only councillors who are members of Swell Borough Council are able to vote and take decisions. However, public attendance and participation in the area committees is a very important feature of them. The council have incorporated provisions in the constitution for there to be a session for members of the public or local organisations, including parish and town councils, to propose items for future agendas for consideration and to ask questions or make comments to the committee. So for the first year, the meetings took place remotely as the COVID pandemic legislation was still in place, and this allowed the formal meetings to take place virtually. Once restrictions were relaxed, the meetings started to take place face-to-face in village halls and community centres. However, many members of the public and councillors agreed that a lot of people preferred the facility to be able to attend the meetings remotely. So a remote conference call device was purchased, the OWL, and so from then on, the meetings have all been hybrid. This has been very effective and allows for wider engagement with people across the borough. So regardless of their accessibility needs, they can still participate either in person or remotely. However, we are a bit restricted on venues as we do need there to be good, reliable Wi-Fi, which fingers crossed we've got tonight. So the purpose of the area committees is to enhance the quality of life of council services in the relevant area and to bring local insight to bear in council decision making. So the terms of reference were agreed when area committees were first put in place. So I'll just run through them. So that there's 4 main areas in the terms of reference. So to develop a work programme to enhance core services within the area and to take a report to council on an annual basis to provide an update on progress. To agree spending decisions in relation to specific funding allocated to members of the area committee. To provide area intelligence to the Policy and Resources Committee and heads of service and assist with policy development on relevant matters. And finally, to make recommendations to full council, Policy and Resources Committee or any service committee on issues in the committee's area and to respond to any other specific matter referred to it by the full council or a committee or a senior council officer. So for the first 3 years, each area committee was allocated funding, which equated to each member receiving an identical amount. This was established at annual council each year at their budget meeting, and it was to be allocated to projects in consultation and agreement with the area committee as a whole. So in line with the terms of reference that I just read out, before each funding scheme was launched, so this was the first of the terms of reference, the area committee would set a work programme where priorities were agreed on how the funding should be allocated each year. So this was different for each area committee, different area committee. So the majority, though, in all the years that it was running, did focus on issues such as improving the appearance, environment and facilities within the area, along with contributing to Swell's strategic priorities. Criteria were agreed, which applicants needed to meet before applications for funding could be considered. So usually at the September round of area committee meetings, after all the checks have been carried out by officers, members would vote to agree how the funding would be allocated. So over the period September 2020 to May 2023, a total of £534,000 was allocated by all 4 area committees to a wide variety of projects, which were overseen by both external organisations, including parish councils in that, and also and town councils, and internally led projects managed by Swell Borough Council. However, at the February 2023 full council meetings, members agreed that one of the measures to address the budget gap was to stop providing funding to area committees. So now that area committees have moved away from providing funding for local projects, the other objectives that I went through earlier in the terms of reference are now the main focus. So as I mentioned earlier, an important function of the area committees is to engage with the public, parish and town councils and community groups. But this is very much a two-way process, with the council providing information about things like proposals to change council services and to seek feedback in the early stages. This can often be part of a public consultation. Council-led projects, seeking the views of residents during the development stage of the project and providing updates as the project develops. So some conservation area reviews have come to this committee in the past, and regular updates have been given. So that's one example of that. So again, when new policies and strategies are being developed or during the public consultation stage, residents are provided with information on the new policy or strategy, so their comments can be fed into the development. So again, an example is the one we've just had with the customer access strategy, which we've had this evening as an example of that one. And then finally on this list, if there's any change to government legislation which may affect residents, information can be provided at meetings, and there's an opportunity to ask questions. So those of you that came to the last round of area committee meetings, the Chief Executive, Larissa Reid, gave a presentation on devolution and how it would potentially affect the area. So that's again another example of that. So area committees aren't just about council passing on information. They are a mechanism for the council to listen to residents. So I'm now going to hand back to the chair, who's going to talk a bit about the review and get to your feedback.
There we go. So following the recommendations of the Constitutional Working Group, Council have agreed to the review being carried out. It's important that we get views from across everybody that's here. Ideally, those that aren't here as well would be great, but I'll grab those, which is mildly disappointing. If anyone has memories of the old local engagement forums and how they worked compared with the area committees, that feedback would be useful as well, so that we can see which model works better, or what we feel works better. But it is very much for you to tell me what you would like me to take back to the working group. In terms of what happens next, we've got a working group meeting the end of the month.
Next week, I think.
Next week, there we go.
Wednesday.
Which will be attended by all the area committee chairs, where we will present that feedback, see what matches up across the 4 areas, whether there are any differences, any similarities, and then we'll start talking about what the next steps are from there, ready to report to council. Via P&R, I think it is, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, via P&R. So that gives the outline. So our first question on this has disappeared.
Maria online has
There
been
we go.
indicated to speak.
We'll go with Maria online first then.
Hello, Maria. You're unmuted, so you should be able to speak.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying.
Sorry, we've lost you.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, we lost you for a second. Sorry, could you repeat your comment?
Yeah, I was gonna for the third time. I hope this holds out. Yeah, the local engagement forums, which were the precursor to this, were really well attended. I don't understand what, I mean, we had presentations, the mayor would chair those obviously, but we'd have loads of residents turn up with various questions. It was really kind of led by the community rather than here's the agenda. So the bulk of the meeting was the kind of residents having their say, and then you'd have the police turn up maybe and give an update on what's been going on in the area. You'd have the odd presentation here and there, but it would be really kind of community led, and there'd be loads of councillors, the parishes would all turn up with a representative. I just don't see why we can't engage with anyone on the area committees. They just don't seem to have taken off. But having said that, I think it's just Faversham that's really poor, because when I've tuned into like Sheppey, there's oodles of people there. So perhaps you could confirm the attendance at other areas.
To respond.
Yeah.
You are correct there, Maria, that there is quite a big variation between the area committees, and Sheppey is fairly consistently very well attended. Whether it is that it's the particular items on the agenda that is drawing people in, it's difficult to say, but I don't really, I can't comment on why it's not so well attended at Faversham. I'll sort of leave that to the members to maybe comment on that.
Mr. Oswald-Jones?
Yes, I was going to say, that's a similar sort of thing. I find this useful because I turn up and ask questions. What about the other 30,000 people, including all the outlying areas for this eastern area? Where is everybody? It's well publicised. Various people put messages on Facebook. This is, they copy the information. So it is publicised from my experience. But there's a lot online or don't have devices. It's sod all here. Pretty bluntly.
What works well is that I can bring questions from my residents that have been asked to me and bring it to you and hopefully get an answer. What doesn't work well, you just have to look. How many borough councillors are here tonight? 4. So even the councillors, and half don't even give apologies, which I find really bad. If I've made the effort and the heat, others would.
Right.
I have many thoughts on areas. This is how to keep this brief down. I think when we talk about things that work well, conversation monitor, things like that are really useful to be able to feed in on with that. But as Maria sort of said, like how it worked previously, I'll be honest, coming as a representative from a town council that's elected to it, I just come to a swell borough council meeting, I can't vote, I can't have a say, I just kind of go, oh, it's fine. But then I can turn around, I've got the exact same amount of power, which is not right or wrong, than the other town councils that attended. You need to let, in my personal view, let towns and parishes and communities set your agenda. It shouldn't be about Swale talking to the parish and towns. It should be about towns and parishes speaking to Swale about the issues that are ahead. You can do information sharing and passing that down, that's fine. But if that's what it's going to be, we can do that via an email, to be honest. And the nicest way, if you haven't got the funding to actually look at projects and actually work with different things, then what we do? Like, we get an attendance like this at every meeting pretty much. And when you sort of look, you've got 2 members of the public that are attending, everybody else, you've got 4 borough councillors, 3 town councillors, and a parish councillor. You sort of hear is going, we've come out to do this. But it kind of feels as well, we need to give a bit more back to us and a bit more like a bit of influence to it. It's like when we're standing out the front early, I mean, we're lucky we've got 4, but we're standing out there and sort of going, is it going to be corporate? And it's not the first time that question has come up when it's I've come to attend these meetings. I've come to as many as I can do, but you sit there and go, it's the same people coming to the meeting time and time again. And I disagree with Mr. Jones, actually. I don't think it's well enough advertised. I don't think that information is passed to residents in any meaningful way. Like, we can put something on Facebook, but realistically, if we get 150 less than 150 responses by stuff that's been advertised by Facebook across the entirety of Swale, then if we're looking at just the eastern area, then is that going to be a realistic outcome of this? It needs to realistically look at how we talk to residents. I mean, in Faversham, we're lucky of that we can put stuff out in the town news and stuff like this, we've got notables, we can put stuff on, but in some parishes and stuff like this, you haven't got that. And it's this idea of, yep, absolutely, like, come along to this meeting and listen to what Swain are doing. Actually, we know for a fact Sam's been here, is that a lot of people care, they're too busy in their lives, they've got other concerns. We need to make it relevant and actually make it that people want to talk about things. As we sort of said about Sheppey, that they have things on the agenda that matter to residents, so actually they come to it because it's very much community led. That's what we should be doing in this area community. There should be an email that comes out from the chair to parishes or town councils towns each time, like in advance of the meeting, saying, what do you want to see on this agenda? What is the burning issue in your area? What can we do to bring this up so actually your voice can be heard to the councils that represent you? If you're sort of thinking, we're lucky in Faversham, we've got 7, if you're in sort of the rest of the eastern area, you've got 3, and that comes a huge swathe of space, so they can't be everywhere at all times. I'll stop now then.
Mr. Newman?
Yeah, Robert Newman, Faversham Town Councillor, for those that don't know. Yeah, I mean, clearly this is going wrong as it is happening. There aren't enough people here. It is kind of farcical, but at the same time, I do think there is a need for this or for something like it. We've got two or three non-councillors have turned up, but 2 of them have made contributions. There is, you know, and last year I had two members of the community turned up to one of them last year, and both said how fantastic it was and what was insight it was, you know, to find out what was going on in it. Yeah, so there is a need. There is. I mean, you know, I agree with almost everything. I think everything that's already been said about the issues and the problems. It's interesting that more people turn up. But Sheppey, yeah, that's. I had a different theory. I'm sure the one about relevant topics is right, and it's not that they've just sort of related to each other there, and so they turn up as I don't think that would be ethical. Sorry, where were we? Don't quote me on that. Too late, yeah, it's funny how this is being recorded, it's done these days. Damn, totally lost my thread there. Yeah, no, it needs to be something, but yeah, it needs to be, it needs to be more participatory. We need more ordinary people. We need all of the parishes need to be turning up. I mean, I as a Faversham Town Councillor, I've got 2.5 years now. I've been a councillor. I do feel I have felt constantly a sort of lack of contact and knowledge of what used to be called Faversham without, and there was Faversham within and Faversham without. Yeah, the villages and things. I just don't know what's going on. I've never met and spoken to most of the parish council things, but that seems like there's something going wrong there, and that we all ought to be turning up at the meeting and talking and getting to know each other better. And if this or something like this ought to be part of that. And somehow it's just not working.
So I've got Councillor Gibson, Councillor Jackson, and then from online, Councillor Worcester.
My views on these things are relatively public conversations, but I won't go into too much. But I do agree. We absolutely, the briefings for members of the public and parish councils are very important. We should find a way to maintain them. I have some particular frustration, and perhaps this is the way we run it that maybe is most effective. But I agree with Councillor Rose actually that we particularly in the way that the agenda has to be structured with moments for public participation is actually not a realistic way of running the way we run this meeting. Actually, it works much better if Mr. Taylor and all of our parish councillors just chip in on every item and ask every question. That's just much more practical than having agenda item. I can't remember what number it is, it's like 14. When we're not on that opportunity. That's just not the most effective system. And as we are seeing with our colleagues' attendance, voting with their feet just isn't a ringing endorsement of us continuing to be listened to. And I would say on the parish council, I agree, councillor Newman, we should be, it would be great if more turned up. And actually, last year I personally wrote to all of the parish councils ahead of every meeting to ask them to come, with limited success. In that I think it's broadly only all who have ever turned up from beyond parish. I think I'm the only parish council, and possibly online once or twice in Ireland, but beyond parish and all, we've rarely had any success, frankly.
Just to confirm, before each round of meetings, I send out one email to start with to everybody saying, this is the round, this is the dates, this is the venues. And then I send close to the date, once the agenda's been published. So obviously it's got the agenda, and it then it repeats, certainly with this one, it repeats the message about parish councils, anything that they would like to bring up, if anybody has a question. And it goes to all the clerks of all of the town parish councils, plus where we've got a named representative for each one, it goes to them as well. So we do sort of, that there are two opportunities where I reach out to parish and town councils. And I know it's pushed, I know because I sort of write the schedule, the social media schedule. There's quite a few times that we do have that. And again, within those emails, I do ask parish councils to forward my email on to anybody who might be interested. So that can go to any residents. It's not a sort of confidential email that has to just stay within parish councils. It can be forwarded on. I don't know whether any parish town councils do that. But apart from physically, we would be very open to other ideas of how to get the message out. It maybe sort of physically, if there's anywhere we can advertise it, I don't know. But
before I come back to Councillor Jackson, I'm going to suggest that we refer something to the next Whale Calc meeting and try and find the dates and days that some of our parishes meet, because I know some only meet 4 or 5 times a year, some meet every month. I seem to recall going to a Selling Parish Council meeting on a Wednesday night, which may conflict.
So Democratic Services do have a list of, probably not all, but most of the ones that as possible, of all the dates, and they try to arrange the schedule of the meetings so there's the fewest clashes. I mean, it's inevitably there will be clashes, but the Democratic Services do try to work around them.
That's Jackson.
Yes, I turn out, I didn't really want to come tonight, but courtesy to my residents. Why he's been represented the land. I wonder if many don't turn up here because there is a town council. But then again, not many people turn up and live at town council meetings, do they? Apart from the councillors.
No.
So on that basis, no one self doesn't what the town council is. But I have wondered that is because there is an active town council, and that's why we don't get so many people turn up. If that makes any sense.
I think we're 100% parish, don't we?
Yeah.
And every other area has at least a part that is not parished, from memory. Councillor Worcester?
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Chair. I do usually listen into different area meetings because I find them incredibly good at trying to pick up what's going on for local residents in other parts of my borough that sometimes I don't often get to. So thank you very much for having me this evening, even if it's online. Sorry about that. I just wanted to add a couple of points that actually it was something I was going to suggest to my area committee as well, was that actually the relationship between area committee and parishes maybe could be helped if on full council agendas for towns and parishes, whom I'm a chair of as well, so I'm completely with you in terms of Faversham Town Council, absolutely. But there is opportunity, for example, to have a standing agenda item for towns and parishes that would allow a good mechanism for items to be passed up to area committee. So, for example, I've had one of your residents over the last couple of weeks message me around some tree issues that are on the central car park in Faversham. And I've highlighted them, signposted them back to the area committee, because I feel that, for instance, if they brought it to the area committee, that could be passed up to Environment Committee if needed to, or passed up to the relevant officers. And I think that's a really good way of making sure that we're staying accountable to residents and giving them the maximum say in what they can do at Swale Borough Council. But it would be really nice to see a standing agenda item for towns and parishes, so that, for instance, when they have their business, there is an actual consideration. Does any of that need to be reflected on at Swale? And what can Swale do to support towns and parishes? The other item, sorry, Chair, to do two things, was that actually Swale's going through a massive, like everybody is, situation with local government reform. And there is the potential here that area committees could actually serve as an independent voice for residents, or an independent safe place where they could actually be courted in their viewpoints. Difficult, obviously, if you're not having a large attendance, absolutely, but it might be one of the agenda items that actually attract people back into the area committee. And also, like Councillor Jackson was saying, there is nothing to stop ward councillors or town and parish councillors actually going out to different groups. Like, for instance, if you've got a women's institute, I speak to them regularly for Sheppey or other areas where you could actually bring their viewpoints to the area committee, and then you would be representing quite a large number of people, even though they're not in the room. Just a couple of points, Chair. Thanks for letting me comment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rowlands.
Yeah, I'll make two very good points that I've already spoken of, just in response to what the customers said there. I agree, great to understand items and standing agendas on there. What was it, point 14 on the agenda is the point where we then get to feed that in. There should be an opportunity again, go back into that for us to feed into the agenda side. Also, I think it's really important when we talk about attendance of parish and town councillors. Majority of volunteers don't get a stipend. I'm not saying it's a bad thing in any which way the council as well, the amount of work they do, they get money for it. But most councils don't. They do it because they love their communities that they work in. I think we need to be honest about how can we work with. I think a lot of this is a lot of points have been around. What can towns and parishes do to get more involved with the area committee? Actually, what can the area committee do to actually get more involved with towns and parishes in a nicer way? In how Swale's budget is much bigger than most than every parish and town in the area. I know lots of time is precious, but I mean, we're lucky at Parishes. We've got 7 members of staff. Most parishes have only got a parish clerk. Like, what can you guys do to actually involve us instead of expecting us to come to you?
Anything else? Anyone with anything that we do well?
Well, I think the officer briefings are really good.
Excellent.
That is really, that's worth reflecting.
When something comes up and it's actually acted on, so yes, I think that's really good.
And I do think the mechanism, well, no, I'm not going to say, I'm going to say that's what I'm going to say. Our ability to refer things to service committees and planning committees, though we've not been 100% successful previously, is a good model. That is not open to individual councillors generally, so it would be quite difficult, particularly for an opposition councillor, to get something on the agenda of an area of service committees or of their own regard. But actually, that we can do relatively effectively in the steering committee, and as we're not hugely politically divisive in the area committee, we get on pretty well and work pretty collegiately. We've tended to be able to do that, even when it's a slightly political issue.
I think it's probably better at area committees than town council.
Sometimes.
So I think we've got a fair bit there to be getting on with. Perhaps one of the tasks that I might take is a trip round to each of the parishes over the next few months. Yes, I do. I also know how many town council meetings that means that I might have to miss. What a pity. Never mind. Yeah. Agenda item 8 is the local government reorganisation update. You will find in your agenda packs an update on the local government reorganisation. A fuller update will be provided at the September meeting. Does anyone have any questions? There we go.
Could we ask parishes to make a specific request that parishes have given this some thought? So I know Faversham Town Council last meeting have given it quite extensive thought. I'm imagining our other parishes have as well. And so partly that's just me not having researched it, but I think it would be useful if what we're hoping for is the Eastern Area Committee to act as a conduit for all those parishes to ask them to confirm they've given it some thought and express that opinion.
Yeah, just following up on that, I think it's a good point, and it's a good follow-on, because recently I know Swale have been holding their meetings with parish councils and town councils at Swale House and talk about local government reorganisation, what it means. I think there was a discussion there about what the next steps are within that. I think actually using the Eastern Area Committee to potentially gather some of those thoughts and things there. So I think our next meeting is until around September sort of time. So I think using this committee would not be a bad idea to be able to bring that forward and up and actually use that.
Certainly, I think for the agenda item for next time round, having a section on perhaps a sub item for parishes to express their view and preferences, so that we can take those into account when feeding in. Who knows, it might affect which hospital you get taken to. All right, so with that, we can move to agenda item 9, which is flooding in the Eastern Area Committee. I will invite Councillor Charles Gibson to give an update on the flooding tracker report, which you will find in the agenda pack. We have been contacted by Mr. Taylor already. Yes, I think it was just an oversight in terms of the A2 not being on there.
Correct. So at this meeting, I received Mr. Taylor's email, noted it, read it and understood it, but it was whilst the agenda pack had been released, so I didn't update the form then. And then I wrote copious notes during the meeting, updated from my written notes, and failed to do the follow-up action from the email, which is entirely my personal admin and has absolutely no bearing on flooding.
It wasn't just about the A2 though, because
There were a number of actions.
well, you can actually have this topic.
That would be very helpful. If I have the physical thing to read off, I'm not.
I don't pay emails, but I issued to Councillor Gibson back in 21st of February, talking about these different serial numbers. And I thought that might have sort of worked its way through the system, and it clearly hasn't done. And just on that point, you say why people don't come out to these meetings, because they've got no confidence in the system. If you can't even be bothered as a committee to take this sort of thing on board, how can you expect every Joe Bloggs out there to do the same? There's no confidence. And now you want to bring in super councils, but you're just going to railroad through, and that's why the electorate out there doesn't bother to come in.
But with respect, we don't.
Somewhat done. I think that decision is already out of your hands, it's out of everyone's hands, because it's going to be railroaded through, and we're going to end up with super council that nobody wants. And it's only when the people finally eventually go out on the streets and protest will you actually see a change. But until that happens, it's just going to be railroaded through. I won't say anything about that.
I will take those notes. If anybody else has got anything to add, I'll add those updates as well. As usual, I circulate the tracker once it is updated after the meeting, so probably from next week to Southern and Water, Helen Waitley and County Council, that's Southern and South Eastern Water.
I've got no confidence in Helen Waitley, she's a waste of space, she's not going to do anything. You're fighting the Southern Water, you're fighting the mafia. Frankly, and she's not going to get anywhere with them. We all know why Southern Water, doesn't do anything, he doesn't want to spend money, and this is why all these flooding issues happen. It was probably a near thing we can get the heavy rain, but they got down to Dover and Sandwich the weekend. So, it will happen eventually, and then everyone will be knocking on everyone else's doors.
Yeah.
You know,
You're absolutely right. I'm certainly not the only person in this room who's expressed extreme frustration at Southern Water. Well, if you wish to watch the recording of the Faversham Town Council's Water Quality Working Group, I use more choice language than I'm going to use in this meeting, but we would not a happy group.
because, as we all know, there won't be any change because the fundamental thing that's flawed is the planning system. Because Southern Water can operate outside of the planning system, so you can build all these houses and keep building them, but they won't do anything to their infrastructure. And until that changes, nothing will change.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, if there are, if anybody else has got any updates on the serial numbers beyond Mr. Taylor's list, which I will do, please stay now, obey them, and then so will be reissued afterwards and circulated as usual to the usual suspects. But as Mr. Taylor has correctly identified, this is mostly just me sending an email into the void.
Although we must bear in mind that Southern Water do now have their Clean Rivers and Seas Task Force operating for this area. One of the first things they've realised is that they have a pump and pumping station on Conduit Street that they didn't realise they had.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have thought the word pump house was a bit of a clue, but apparently
Well,
not.
I mean, that's a complete ignorance of that company, if that's the case.
They stood in this room, what, a week ago, and said exactly that we've just got to check to see if the pump actually works. But if it does, that's great. But who knew? Mr. Oswald Jones.
Well, apologies for being out of the room when Mr. Taylor was speaking, but I've been very interested to read the ongoing, ever increasing list on all the planning applications coming in now. I suggest please keep it up because it does log the additional catchment area is the wrong word, but the additional increasing problem between Swell Borough Council planning and Southern Water's way of working or not working or whatever. I'm not going to that. But yes, it's getting longer, many more pages. On each planning application, it involves, that does involve not just dwellings, but anything of extra device usage in the water sense. Thank you.
But of course, the planners completely ignore it because it's not part of foul water is not part of the planning system. We all know that they have to take the flows and therefore.
Under the legislation, the water company is required to meet the increased demand and should be reducing how much they give to the shower.
Well, of course, we know
They don't.
we know what they're doing. The fundamental thing they're doing is dry spilling the sewage into into the creek because they can do it because they get away with it because they're in control of their own system. No one monitors it. There's no way that they can build all these new housing estates without that happening. They have to be doing that, and that's exactly we know they're doing it, but we can't prove it because they're in control of the data. But that's what they're doing. How on earth can they treat all that sewage works, which wasn't fit for purpose 25 years ago? And that's minuted in Swale Borough Council minutes and meetings and reports and goodness knows what else. And I think that's another thing, but basically the electorate out here of, the common man has lost confidence at the system at all levels because they know that whatever they do, nothing will change. And that's the real issue. And it's sad, it's saddening to actually say that, I'm afraid. And, there should be more people there, but that, it speaks for itself.
Mr. Newman, Josh.
Yeah, I would just expand slightly on what you said, Chair. But yeah, a week ago, Hertfordshire Town Council finally managed to get someone from Southern Water to turn up. And we had a meeting here, very well attended by members of the public, which shows when you've got a key, important issue, public will turn up. And we had lots of questions to ask and points to make about sewage in the creek and such like. And all we had was this team of 3 PR people who had a little prepared presentation about what marvellous stuff they were doing, replacing pipes in the drains. I didn't know anything about sewage in the creek. And they were like, oh yeah, we just discovered we've got this pump that we don't need. And we've just discovered that, right, sort of just under here, just in the market square, there's a stretch of the main sewer was replaced at some point by just a sort of really narrow pipe, and that's why you have lots of problems with backing up. And we're going to look at that now. But everything we wanted to talk about, the sewage works and the smell that sometimes comes from the creek, they were completely, no, we don't know anything about this. This is what we've been trying to get a meeting, talk to you about for years.
And E. coli's got nothing to do with them. That's the farmers having animals that definitely.
It was very frustrating. But I mean, at several points, one of the leagues that a lot of people turned up, and if we, that had been on the agenda here explicitly, here's your chance to tell us on the water how much you don't like them, then maybe a lot more people would have turned up. Also, I think there was a mention of taking to the streets, having some kind of protest. If we're going to protest about the inaction of Councillor Gibson or something, yeah, I'm up for that. Let's organise it. So let's get going.
There's the.
Josh, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Said here is obviously Councillor Gibson keeping up your very much well read by someone also driving a tractor, and I'm sure on Monday it absolutely was a lot of PIs. Just to be there, absolutely it was a lot of PIs. I was I did feel bad for the engineer because he actually thinks he was knowing what he was talking about and was actually genuinely slightly interested in people's thoughts. But the other two that are genuine, not from the PR department of Southern Water, the can't prove they won't. But it's just one of these ones that continues to be on of the. We will keep pushing, and I say we, I mean this insurance committee will continue to push. We'll do a flooding track, we'll do this, but until Southern Water actually come in the room and have a proper conversation. And the proper conversation that they're alluding to is not just about flooding, it's about everything else that goes on. Like, we're talking about where it goes into the creek and Faversham. But it must be happening across other areas as well. There must be these issues in parish as well. And I'm hoping on your road trip tour, Mr. Chairman of the parish, that you've now promised that is on record that you're actually going to do, that this is something that does come up in conversation. Because I think the more evidence that we get together, just in the Eastern area, let alone across the swag, about these issues, the more pressure we can put on. And I think it's going to new sense. Let's invite to them. Let's get them there. We say we want to get people in a room. We know without really putting much effort into it last Monday. We got people into a room. I think that that's something we should be looking at.
I can attempt to get them into a room, but even when you want to get them in a room to do something nice, it's very tricky.
Yes.
Wearing my other hat, my work hat, and given that I was basically offering to assist them in delivering something, and I'm yet to have a response from Monday night.
It's not
Yeah, I'm not saying a word. Any further on the floodplain? Mr. Oswald Jones.
As a form of summing up, and to excuse the words, there's the old phrase, pissing in the wind.
If everybody was doing it in the wind, there'd be much less flooding.
No,
Depends which way the wind's blowing.
sorry, it's more about ensuring that there is less surface water runoff by utilising slow draining water butts. Councillor Jackson.
And give a compliment because the flooding in St Anne's, Town Street, since the crosstown opened and the drains have been cleared out, seems to have done with your helpers, keeping the leaves out. There seems to have solved a problem there.
Yay!
Outside.
Well, that's up to the chair whether I can speak or not.
You get far away.
Not sure whether that's actually to Southern Water. I think that's the KCC achievement. They use that, yes.
It has been solved.
The drainage team may be a bit tardy at KCC in getting jobs done. I'm aware of the Doddington and various other parishes. But get there in the end, maybe 2 years later, but it gets there.
I suggest we put that as solved question mark,
Yeah.
pending the first real heavy
I'll put it in there. I think
Because I'm sure at some point,
Leaves, there's a tree.
tree's still there.
Yeah, if the lady, who the residents in this would cut that tree back, that may solve a lot of problems.
Let's see if we're having a glorious celebration of 180.
On the case. And one, two others.
I think my concern at the moment is obviously we're going through a particularly dry spell, having had the driest May, April, March on record, I think. As such, hosepipe ban will come, but it also means that the soil cannot hold as much water when we do get those heavy rains. So you're going to have more surface water runoff. Let's hope the suds work.
We're talking Tower Street, between St Jude's up to South Road, that stretch. There are overhanging trees from 3 residences. And one on the end of 40 something South Road, Gary Gibbs Highways, got the owner is up on his ladder for 3 weeks. But the leaf fall is going to happen anyway. And so I have put a request to Swales cleansing team through Doncaster, actually, that the Lewis road sweeper does a routine one pass up there and have done it next weekend just to go out and look and see what the condition is. Good information for you.
Excellent, thank you. So with that, we can head to agenda item 10, which is the local bus forum minutes for noting. Anyone got anything from the bus forum that they'd like to?
I believe that the next meeting is being scheduled fairly soon, so hopefully at the next meeting we'll have those minutes.
Yeah, we're 6 months ago, wasn't we?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
anyone have any comments on buses to take to the next forum?
That's a good idea. Let's get buses to the next one.
Any bus users in the room?
Yes.
Excellent, we've got bus users. Let's fire away with reduction on services, shall we?
Yeah, stagecoach cutting the 3 extreme, they decided this week, down to an hour in the service as paying 73 timings as well. It's noticeable when one is now not in the service, and that is causing those people who use bus services to actually, they go to by 10, but actually they probably do 9 a day. There's one broken down somewhere, and you just be silly. But yeah, apart from personal pain, they're starting the service later in the mornings. First bus out the boat, about 7:15, where it was about 10 to 7. Although the corollary to that is the 7 o'clock bus out again, which is now 7:30. So the stagecoach are a commercial company, and they are trying to ensure that the buses they run are full, and they are managing that to a certain extent of that reduction.
I mean, we're cut off Osbridge over that area. I mean, no buses go up there, I don't think, now, wasn't it?
Lower, Lower Road, they've come to 638, I think it is. It starts at Court Street, Mrs. Lower Road up to Acacia Court, not Kill Court.
Should we just go off
The
one?
bus goes up there and turns round outside Acacia Court. Has a little wait there for a few minutes.
But my residents want to come down to the town in the hot bus, and one of them got on it, she's 80. And she said, I ended up going all around the countryside and made up to around here. She said, all I wanted was to come down to the town.
That is something that the town councils of the bus, forget her name, they're aware. It's a one-way service around the block. You don't have one going that way, the second bus coming back the other way.
Struggle enough to get
Yeah.
volunteers for one, let alone 2. That's the downside.
Yeah, I think we're all painfully aware of the problems with the proper bus on the back, because it has a one-way loop. I mean, for me and my wife, if we could get the hot bus to Sainsbury's from our house, but then to get it back again, we end up going around villages, manades, and it takes about an hour. But it's like 5 minutes one way and an hour back. much quicker to do the half-hour walk than actually get the bus back. But there's nothing, you know, I mean, we've only got one bus that, yeah, if it was a bigger success, if more people were using it, we'd be looking at getting a second bus and sorting some of those issues. But as it stands, yeah, it's often not some of the parishes, some of the villages barely use. There's one or two people who are totally relying on it, and very few other people using it. It's you know, it's difficult.
Josh?
Yeah, I think it's lovely that we're talking about the bottle bus and the way it's used, or not used in some ways. But if that's the case, can we be invited to the forum, please? If we're going to talk about the bottle bus, so I don't think we have a rep on that at the moment.
You do,
Local bus forum.
yes. Councillor Gordon.
No, the Eastern Community Area Committee does, but I think they're.
No, I'm talking about-
Oh,
we're going to talk about a bottle bus. Because I mean, not if I know one of the services stage coach, you know, it's going to turn up at least most of the time. Well, we're talking about stagecoach as well. As we said, they're cutting services. They've got real positive. It's £3. £3 to travel pretty much anywhere on stagecoach, a single journey. That's something that they should be promoting more and more and more. Like I said before, it's £6.80 to get to Sittingbourne, £3, £8.20 to get to Canterbury, £3. Fine, it takes a little bit longer. But actually, the service is about the same, realistically. It's the same, I think it's about the same number of services. Maybe it's a school now.
And you can get to Maidstone for £3.
Maidstone as well, £3.
You can't get there in Tunbridge.
I can't do that on train, direct. There are positives that are there, you just need to sort it out. And that's something that we need to do. And I think that's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
Is, I don't understand, but almost the sandwich job, if you will, of going, you're doing this really well, you're doing this terribly, but you're doing this really well, guys, and like almost stroke the ego a little bit of it, and just go, you're doing some good things, but we just want more of the good things you're doing, please.
So we'll get that feedback back to Alistair, ready to go to the next forum meeting.
Declare an interest with a very, very minority shareholder in Stagecoach. But I don't see the financial side because I have a bus pass. As long as it's after 9:30, I think it is, so yeah. But unless they're over 60, yeah.
Over 65 now, I think, or is it 67?
I can't get that bus to reflect the climate age in England. I chose my words very carefully there.
Yeah, okay.
Scotland, Wales, to Northern Ireland, we can have to sort it.
No.
A long time ago for me, so.
So item 11 is matters arising. Anyone got any items they want to report back on from the previous?
Three.
Ooh,
Right. Are there any signs in the cars that the bar? Because the other day I watched a resident, that's wrong, a motorist. She wasn't parked in a bay, and she idled for about 20 minutes. And when I said to another person, oh, we should turn it off, she said, well, there's no signs saying against idling.
that one gone.
I'll check it on the way out.
I think it might.
I'll picture it.
No, this one, that's one of those got taken out of the car park to walk here this evening,
By the taxi rank,
possibly. But this was a woman who didn't want to pay.
back of multi-sale.
And she was just sitting on the outside, just idling her car, which I think is happening quite a bit. They don't want to pay. And they're waiting for
Taxi
traffic.
bay, yes, and that's aimed at taxi drivers, obviously.
So could we have an idling sign or a couple in the car park?
On the entrances to the car park.
Yes, somewhere like that.
We can put that request to, well, is it Housing, Health and Communities Committee that's on, or is it Environment?
Parking services.
Okay.
Parking services.
If I'm thinking which committee it goes to, because if we ask it to go on the entrance to car parks, it, yeah.
Environment.
I can't remember which way we voted to divide it. Went to,
Well, we use on environmental services and climate change committee.
there we go, that one did go over. We'll pop that as a referral over to the environment committee. There you go, Dolly.
resident, but I think Councillor Golding was in touch with our Spaniard on this morning. She would like a litter lotto app.
Sorry, what was that?
A
Litter?
The litter lotto.
Which encourages people, they take a photo when they put their litter into the bin, and then it all goes into somebody being drawn out, doesn't it, once a month or something. So I did say I would raise it at this committee. Some down the line contacted me.
We'll find that to environmental services and whatnot as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
excellent.
the other one is going back to Whiting Crescent, the green down the bottom. I will not give up on it. When we were knocking doors, residents said, all right, we can't have a swing, we can't have a slide. Can we have goalposts there? Which shouldn't really need a lot of maintenance, but it would be for the older youth, which there isn't a lot of catering for around that area. There isn't a lot of catering for the younger, but it's the older youths, the ones about 12, 13, 14. And it is Kent, Swales Land.
Community?
What made them say they should be environment?
Environment as well, there we go. It's all going to Johnny's. It is. Sorry?
When I mentioned about Whiting Crescent and the facility for children, you know, on that green,
I think please.
Martin's always said, this is about 2 or 3 times, and I said, I'm not going to shut up. And he said, put it through community, put it through community. So I don't know.
We change the committees to again. Just to confuse everybody. You are.
So I've had the taxi drivers ask me about people using taxi rank in the front of the station and just seeing if there's any sort of enforcement we could actually do with that, because it is at peak times people are just dropping people off and left them all there when there is no job on site. There is a perfectly good job zone at the back of the station that could be used, and it's literally 30 seconds drive away or maybe 5 minutes in the busiest times. Taxi drivers have mentioned yesterday NPR cameras to put there. I agree with them that it would pay for itself very quickly with the fines of an issue, but I do understand the cost within the cost of the first instance is there. I said, I'll bring it up to something, I'd bring it up to something, it could go to Swale.
I think ANPR becomes a moving traffic violation and therefore would be under the county. Yeah. And before you get corrected, the person behind you is going to say that the front of the station is on the Mall, the back of the station is on Station Road. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah.
Back, yeah.
It's good for stuff. It's on that point. Can I just say, why shouldn't there be a space for the public to drop off people at the station? Why should it just be for the taxi drivers? They don't own it, do they? There should be public, should be able to drop off there, 1 or 2 spaces. Yeah. What's wrong with that? That's when people have all got cars.
Given the space on both sides of the road, I think it would be eminently sensible for the space on the northern side of that road, opposite the station, that could very easily accommodate public drop-off spaces.
This is what the public wants.
Well, clearly. It's a very big one.
So, put that in the minutes, debate it.
I stand to be corrected, Chair, but between the bus stop and I think it's a street light post, there is a drop curb, and the section which is double yellow lined, not taxi bag, double yellowed. You can unload and load passengers, but not park. It's only 1 car length. I don't think that's been changed. It was relined about 3 years ago.
It's still the same. I think it is.
It does exist. If there's only 1.
It's probably referring to the JTB, aren't we, to just review the whole scheme.
But if there is something, there should have a sign.
Well, yes.
It's double yellows.
But, but these, again, this is a complex subject, but this is what man on the street out there wants you to deal with, because they want to drop people off. It's a station.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be penalised for it. They don't want, we've got enough cameras in this country. We should be tearing the cameras down. We're dominated by cameras. We don't need that. We shouldn't be told that we run our lives. But, do sensible things. Get a couple of spaces there, or have a space with a sign you can drop off there. What's wrong with that?
Controversial, Chair, we had rail replacement buses. They installed, they do that's the whole, the actions technically use it anyway. So it's a 2-way question there.
I think this is a case of, I think JTB to look at whether we can change the layout and environmental looking for parking services
Yeah.
to have, increase the, patrols in the area is probably the answer there. And those patrols would pick up on taxi drivers who are idling as well, which they do definitely have signs at all the taxi ranks, about that. Want to add Preston Street on that list for further rounds? Well, yeah,
If we're talking about idling times, we probably should look at Preston Street, because mostly not taxis, so there are some taxis, but a lot of the food delivery drivers do idle at Preston.
And, outside Aussie vendors.
That's the top, well, that's good.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the large pizza delivery company, but
Yeah.
that's good, but they do it.
Well, in fact, there's Domino's, et cetera, not just, Thank you, Chair.
anything else on matters arising? Nope, lovely. So agenda item 12 is public forum. We got them on the end. Public forum. Jones.
There raised some issues. I won't go into too much detail, I'll keep it brief, but basically get them onto the agenda for progression and follow-up at our next. That is, in the central car park, actually, central car park part of Leslie Smith Drive, outside of Mounty Say. The Mounty Say property, there are 2 trees, and I'm not going to talk about the car wash. If you've got any comments, put them on the portal, planning. The black poplar tree, the huge great one, recently had some vehicle strike, branches down. The dead is still there. I called that in for spoil for waste clearance. I called it in for highways in the hope that highways would put pressure on the owners, Mounty Say, to put in for planning application for tree works to crown raise, ground lift 5 metres so the articulated vehicles, etc., don't block branches off. According to the KCC Faults GIS map, immediately outside between the poplar tree, the fence and the ladies' toilet is highways. But Gary Gibbs has come back with another map which said, no, it's not. There's a diagonal demarcation between highways and Swale. So I've gone to Swale and said, can Swale put pressure on Mounty Say? I'm not going to get involved directly with Mounty Say because other matters. Swale, we don't do that. And this was, if Dolly's listening, this was Chloe Tuesday morning confirming in her message that Environment Swale do not get involved in third-party trees. I said, this is a health and safety problem where trees drop onto people, vehicles, causing damage into what is now apparently Swale Central Park part of Smith Drive. This is also a rear access to the Preston Street properties, like Scissorhands and Abbey Print. So we've got a health and safety problem. Can Swale look at it again? That's one question. Secondly, again, Mounty Say's own sycamore tree has the Swale's toilet block phone line. I'm not sure about power line. It's definitely the phone line links across in the trees. There's going to be some remedial action before Swale's phone link gets cut off. That's a second topic.
One for property services.
Third thing is something totally different.
Because it's an attended one. Because the guy's in there and he attends and he goes to the other ones, open and close.
I was asking why the toilet has a phone.
I can't hear what it's.
I was asking why the toilet has a phone, but the question's been answered.
Yeah.
And also you've got the pulley systems and the disabled, which would have to be able to go somewhere if the individual who is there is down at the wreck refilling toilet paper, for example.
I've got the knowledge.
I'm just thinking that's what we have to do at work. for the same reason.
Yeah. The other thing I'd like to raise, if I may, and I have emailed UK Power Networks to ask who is their contact for property maintenance concerning, and I've copied in chair and vice chair just for information. I'm waiting an answer back as to who the contact is by email on the topic of the compound they use in the Central Car Park backing onto Croft Lane. And this affects its maintenance of their brick walls all the way around is being severely destroyed by buddleia growth. It's cracking up. The coping top layer, 2 layers down, they're cracked off. They need some serious maintenance. Cross Lane, that will affect highway properties. Central Car Park, it affects Swellborough Council's car park property. So that's another topic which,
Property
if
sales.
I get some information, I will relay it to. Thank you.
Anyone else for public forum? Mr. Taylor?
A number of items. First of all, the boatyard was dumped, 3 boat hulks, as well as a couple of years ago. I think they call them timber dolphins. They're Abbey Fields. But the dolphins were done a couple of years ago. It didn't seem to create much of an issue. But now, last year, in fact, 3 hulks were dumped there, and they've now been propped up. And nothing seems to be happening about it. The planners, Swell planning enforcement are interested. They said it's something to do with fly tipping and KCC are dealing with it. And it just goes into a big black void that you know, nothing happens. So, you know.
Is this on the old railway bed?
Yes, yeah, just down from the small bungalows.
Oh, right, so it comes onto rail law, doesn't it, from memory?
Well, I mean, the point about it is, the shipyard is all call it what you want, the boatyard. I mean, is that their land? And, you know, is what they're doing perfectly acceptable? I don't think it is. You know, Paul Casey at Swale gives me you know, he tells me one thing and tells me another. I lost confidence in him. He's the head of Swale Command. He said it's something to do with planning. I mean, they've torn a lot of soil out. It's not much of an embankment there, but that's probably contaminated soil because it had steam engines on it. And so anything that's contaminated land, if you want to build a house in there, you'd have to have geotechnical information about the state of the soil. They've torn the last swale, plus all the vegetation gone, and they put these 2 boat hulks. So they've actually propped up.
So it's a land ownership question first and foremost.
Yeah, so as I said, my understanding is that if the problem really is if it is classed as fly tipping and they therefore contact the landowner, but if the landowner is the boatyard,
Then it's not blighted.
they're just not going, yes, they just don't give it up.
It goes again, you see, like, there's a number of things here. Like, what's right and wrong, that's one thing, but there's another, you know, these are boat hulks, they're dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, they're fire traps, supposing one collapsed, you know, you get kids in there, it's a school holidays, it's a health and safety issue. And also, it's an eyesore. You know, fine, if you want to go and see boats with the boatyard, fine, I accept that. But not start moving outside, you know, what is clearly a sort of defined boundary. Completely unacceptable. But this happened last year, but it just goes round and round, nothing happens. And I think since then, in fact, I was away at the first part of the year abroad, but since then, clearly more soil has been dug out.
Which is a mining operation.
Well, to swale plans, we're not interested. Apparently you can do that.
Land ownership.
It would be land ownership is the first basis.
I mean, I have listened to various councils, Gibson, probably aware of it, but it all tends to sort of, you know, it just doesn't go anywhere. And frankly, it's dangerous. You know, I mean, I've no idea how you contact the fire brigade about these things, but I bet if you said to the fire service that these dangerous, what is it, kids getting there and set fires? You know.
Have you been looking into this one already?
Well, I've been reporting and chasing Mr. Taylor's reports, basically, but as I said, it has gone from being a planning enforcement issue to whether it has applied to an issue. Neither of which frankly have resulted in any action.
I mean, ACC, another heavyweight useless organisation, they take all our money, council tax, they do, star. I'm not going to swear.
It will remain on my list of things to chase up, but we're chasing a service who effectively don't want to do it.
Question to Mr. Taylor, basically, have you contacted the assumed boat owners, yard owners?
Why?
Is what we want to do?
No, I don't think I should have to, that's what we've got councillors for. This is what all this system is in place for. We need a mechanism so that we can contact, you know, because these are outside of my experience, but outside the experience of everyone else out there.
It was a reasonable request. I'll certainly try, which would, you know, the official plans have not yielded.
If we can get a look at the land registry for that strip of land, that may help point us in the right direction, assuming it's registered.
I mean, you might already know there is, for about 3 years, there's an outstanding planning issue at the boatyard. Because they've, you know, the little bridge over what I think you call it Ironwood Creek. That's what I call it anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's got about 3 or 4 different names depending on who you talk to. But that little bridge, the bridge that was widened, you know, it's a very narrow bridge, now it's a bit wider. Because they put a dry dock park on the other side, on land, they shouldn't really be on that, subject to a planning application, a change of use or something. But that's been sitting in the planner's filing tray for 3 years. What do they do up there? Pick their noses? You know, I mean, there's something terribly wrong. Something terribly wrong somewhere, you know.
It may well be one of the cases that's been around the agency staff that form the backbone of the planning department at the moment.
Well,
There's a problem with enforcement of their planning staffing.
Well,
Enforcement is not a statutory function.
there's a problem with
Really?
those.
Planning enforcement is not a statutory function.
There absolutely is a problem with enforcement. There is a pretty major problem with planning. As I received an action, which is in many ways beyond the sway of control, and since there is a national shortage of officers, and we are unable to employ officers who don't exist.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but isn't that what we constantly hear in this country? There's always a sort of employ some people.
Well,
You know, employ some people,
they are
get
right.
people in the jobs, get them doing all these things. This is where it's all going wrong. We need the people there.
we absolutely.
Employ them, get them in, give them jobs. What's wrong with that? You know, we pay enough taxes.
No, it's not the money, it's the available, it's the supply of people.
Training, because that's quite.
We'll then start educating people. What do we build all these schools for? Educating people properly.
That would be very helpful.
Well,
Josh, just notice,
sorry.
yeah, sorry, I'm interrupting, but the floor.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, sorry, just so there's an important, what was an issue in the boatyard, but now this coming outside of the boatyard. It might be an, but then surely that needs qualifying. You know, but you've got, in my estimation, you've got a dangerous situation now. And it shouldn't be, it should be stopped. It was, you know,
If we can identify the landowner through land registry, that may assist us in being able to take that issue further on and try and get it resolved one way or another.
right, that's that point. The second point is about these earth buns in Curie School, which has been doing the rounds. Mr. Casey at Swale said, well, what did he refer to it as, the term, the half term or whatever, this period, they were meant to start removing them. Now, I don't think anything's happened. And he's gone quiet.
Well, so it's in a planning enforcement matter, they have enforced from the school. The school said to Mr. Taylor and a number of other people that they were going to do it in half term. When I walked past the end of half term, I think if anything, there's a new additional.
Well, exactly, and I've said that to Mr. Casey, but again, all sort of, It just doesn't go anywhere. You know, these are funds, they should never have constructed them because effectively, in simple terms, they've effectively formed a sort of earth fund like a flood, and you've got a stream there, and it's a flood zone and everything else, and they've interfered with the, you know, with the sort of the hydrography and the, you know, hydraulics of the whole thing. They should never have been allowed to have done it in the first place, but it's just happened. I'm not even going to school, perhaps they had lots of surplus soil or whatever, but they should have, a lot more thought should have gone into it. The school does a very good job educating the kids.
That was going to be my question as to why the necessity to create the buttons.
I mean, the explanation I was given is it was started as a temporary process by they excavated to put stuff in.
But it's sort of, it's grown like a flipsy.
Exactly, but yeah, exactly. So I mean, partly why it's quite difficult to judge if the bunds have disappeared is that they are now entirely covered with vegetation, so they just look like hills. It's been quite difficult to tell if you had done anything to them. So I'll be back in touch with the school. Because they said they agreed they were wrong and had suggested they were going to take action. Which they then did. They made more progress on this than the buttons. It looked some action has been taken, but not actual resolution.
Third point, Matilda Way, the Paddington Town Council have gone out of their way to promote, you know, the alleyway between the parish church and Abbey Place, Matilda Way. It's got nice seats there, I don't know who put those in. They were there. But anyway, the thing about this is, I'm not here to go on about it's called Matilda Way and do what you want. But the point is that the footpath there is in a dreadful state. And it belongs, I think a lot of it belongs to KCB, some might belong to the church authorities. It's all a bit clouded. But a proportion of it, I think, was admitted to belong to KCC. And it's a tarmac footpath and it's got potholes in it, gets heavily full in the winter, get water in the potholes, freezing. It's actually, you know, some of it's quite dangerous now. And it's been like that for years, and KCC are doing what's it called, managed decline.
Yeah.
You know, managed decline. You know, but they've got all our money. They can't even be bothered to come over with a tarmac repair down. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with the world? They can't have with a tarmac down.
Suggest logging in on the KCC.
No,
It is logged.
Gary Gibson's already said he's been out and none of them, he told them not to spend any money.
Yeah, it's been logged many times, and that is part of the name of the controversy, was that to give it a name would encourage KCC to act more interested in it.
Gary's Highways. Gary's Highways.
Yeah,
That's a proud.
It's a public right of way, it's not in his remit.
Yeah, so it should be the public rights of way team that look at that one.
Dennis Fogel.
They said that they have been necessitated, and they did make some repairs to the bits closer to the churchyard, which used to be also very bad, have been improved. So they did do some repairs.
Well, if any repairs have been done along that alleyway, it was donkeys years ago. I mean, perhaps repairs have been done in the past, but it's dangerous. And what you're doing, fine, I agree. We're trying to encourage tourists, we're trying to encourage people to visit, and it's all very nice there. And what the Abbey Physic Garden there, it's a delightful place. You know, it's a little haven of peace and tranquility in a mad world. But let's get some tarmac down there. You know, what's wrong with it? What's wrong with the world? You know, there's horrendous things going on in the world, but after all, we're still in England. Let's get some tarmac down. You know, I'll fund it, I'll put my hand in the pot. You know, but let's do something about it. But that's what we can't seem to do. And that's what people want. It's for a bit of decent footpath removal, so they don't have to go. Got a elderly population. You know, lots of school kids going in there because it's the main entrance to the school.
This is KCC. It would be helpful if our KCC councillors were here, wouldn't it? Then we could refer to them.
But again, you see, right, what came up at the beginning of this meeting? Why aren't there people here? Because their voice doesn't get heard. Because there's so many layers. But you've got to sort of, it's somebody once said to me, you're like a ballerina going to a minefield. That's what it's like. Think about it, ballerina going to a minefield.
Certainly, we can chase Mr. Hook about the unnamed path.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Is the,
I don't know if I
Unnamed path. I'm sticking with unnamed path.
fourth topic?
It has none and will have no name. Those are the basis these days. Certainly, Mr. Hook would require an actual meeting of KCC for something to be done. So there is that as well. Any other items for public forum? Nothing online. So we can head into agenda item 13, which is reports and updates from parish and town councils.
The only thing is, for the town council to actually take a policy and have a position on government organisation, which is that of the town council, there's a function should be in east within the well, category of that model, and we do see merits within the was it Ashford Maidstone Swale model. But if there is either a 2 unitary model or 3 unitary model move forward, then function will actively look to divide off that and go towards category. Maybe it's
Anything else? Lovely. Agenda item 14 is local issues to be raised. Do members have any issues they would like to be raised on behalf of local residents or communities that hasn't already been covered? Wunderbar. Agenda item 15 is the matters to be referred to service committee chairs for consideration. I think that's given us yes, for Dolly.
So I've got a record of those and all.
Excellent. And what I will ask, which is not on the agenda, the next meeting takes place on the 2nd of September 2025. Ooh, it's a bit soon after Hop Festival, isn't it? So, just if you have any items you would like on the agenda, do email in and I will do my best to make sure they're on there if we can get speakers and whatnot that can actually talk to them. Certainly I'll be trying again for Southern Water, among others, to see if we can get them here. And I will be out and about in the parishes, as has been assured. I have had a few trips to parish council meetings in the past, and I do enjoy them, seeing how different parishes do things. Some have their KCC councillor give a report at the start of the meeting. Some have their borough councillors give a report at the start of the meeting. Others are just like, not that long. So we'll have a look and see what happens. I can ask Paul.
So this, I think they generally come about once a year. I think we've had, I'm trying to think when they last came, not the last meeting. I think they were at the meeting before, but I can certainly ask.
I think they were in December.
December, yeah.
I was going to say, you're not attended as if that was a unique identifying feature.
Yeah, but I could see if they can come to the September one, if not the December.
Gary Norris was down at physics school. I wasn't there, but.
Have the conversation and see where we go from there. Right. And with that, we'll draw the meeting to a close.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming along, and fingers crossed we can get something more exciting so that more people come next time.